Welcome to Fairy Tale Access, where the head fairy's quest is to prove that fairy tales do exist in actual time rather than once upon a time. Together, we will unravel the heroes, young and old, who turn dreams into reality. These are the people who still believe in happily ever after. The discoveries will bend even our most cynical non-believers into believing in fairy tales. Hi, welcome to Fairy Tale Access. Today, I'm excited to have author Bibi Krall, and she's going to come in via Skype. You're really going to enjoy the stories we have to introduce to you today. Miss Krall, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. So let's talk about Escape into the Blue first. That was such a good read, and it was so fast moving.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about how you came up with the beautiful Sofia, our survivor in the story.
Well, in all honesty, Sophia, I think authors, when they first write, they go from knowledge of their own past, and really, I am Sophia. In a lot of ways, Sophia's stubbornness, her inability to make good choices, I am right there. I'm Sophia.
So you were a teenage rebellion?
Oh, I was a nightmare. I can't believe my parents even allowed me to remain. I mean, I was just a mess. So I'm grateful to my parents now because I didn't realize how just incredibly debilitating I was. I was just like constantly exploding.
Wow.
So I understand Sophia.
Well, I think Sofia, while she made bad choices, I think a lot had to do with how she was struggling with her accident that occurred. But I think that once she got into deeper problems, she really was unique about getting out of it.
I agree with you. I think that's something that people forget is that especially women, that I think women have this inherent ability to sort of sense danger and feel, from their gut if things are right or wrong. And so
Right.
I really wanted to write about that because it's something that people forget that they have. It's a tool that we all have. And I wanted to talk about Sophia using that tool to get herself out of a lot of trouble that she really didn't have the knowledge to get out of. It was like she sort of felt the vibration and said, okay, I better duck or I better jump. And I wanted to write about that.
Well, you did a great job. I think it shows, how teenagers can sometimes make decisions and take off on a whim and not really explore or plan for the unexpected.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Why would you go to an island and land there with no money and plan on sleeping on a beach? And all the things she ran into, it was so realistic and frightening, but realistic.
That was my attempt too, because I think sometimes that we forget that everybody in the world isn't lucky enough to get on an airplane or to have the money to go somewhere else. So when you're writing a story, I think you almost owe the readers the ability to travel somewhere, not just know a character, but to know a place, really know a place. And I'm a beach maniac. I love the beach. So if you've never been to the beach, if you read this book, you're going to the beach.
I know, and all your research matched everything in the book. So it made it more, well, for me, I like to do community and legal research. So looking at it, like, where did she get this from? And then it was really, it all lined up. So it was a great book, and anybody who had ever been to the places mentioned would recognize it.
That's cool.
But how did you come up with one, the hovering stalker?
Well, I went through a 10-year stint of crazy ex-boyfriends. And so crazy is pretty easy for me to write because I've had a lot of experience with crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I think about some of the things that I put up with or some of the things that actually happened to me, it was really easy to write him because, I was right there. He wasn't Hispanic. He wasn't standing in this bar. He wasn't any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you strip it all away, it's the same guy. It's the same guy. So, it was very, very easy to write him. And in fact, I almost got like too deep with him. And I was like, okay, we have to keep going. We can't talk about this lunatic. We have to move on to another lunatic.
There were several. And there is the one who got away, which,
Yeah.
you always hope she would catch up to him by the end of the book. So maybe there should be a book 2.
Well, I've thought about this guy, and the funny thing is this guy, if you travel, if you go a little bit off the chart, this guy is everywhere. He's like the guy with the backpack who seems a little bit smarter than he. He's just he's that person that you notice, and he's sharp, but maybe unshaven.
Mm-hmm.
But you see that he has this knowledge. And so I wanted to talk about that guy because he's always the most mysterious guy in the airport. Always the person that you just, for a second, you look at him and just think, where did he really come from? And so airports to me are like huge fodder for characters. Mm-hmm. They're the best characters. So if you can't be creative, just go to the airport, sit in a rocking chair, and just watch the people show, and you will have your characters. And you can make up what you want because it's fiction, but I wanted them to get together too. But in a lot of ways, in that particular story, if he had come back, then that feeling of dread and that feeling of loneliness that was necessary to sort of bring her to the really strong character point she needed, mm-hmm. she wouldn't have come to because she would have had the support that she really desired. So, I needed her to sort of strike out on her own because she really was there to do that. And if he was there, the story couldn't have been the same.
That's probably true. So what message did you want people to get out of this book?
Well, out of this book, I want people to appreciate Caribbean culture, for one. I don't want them to get off a cruise ship and go t-shirt shopping. Well, I do. But I also want them to look at the people that are selling the t-shirts. I want them to eat the local food. I want them to see that this is not just a cruise ship stop. This is a place where people live that has tradition and history. And, these aren't just faceless humans with hands. It's a place. But I also want to talk to young teenage girls and young teenage boys about, when your situation's bad, you feel yourself just falling off the charts. People don't see you. People don't understand you. Somebody does. You just haven't tried hard enough to find that person. So it's about trying to find your way where you are, not leaving your circumstances and putting yourself in a bigger situation. Mm-hmm. So because Sofia had this crazy idea that all of these human problems would just fall off her shoulders. That's not how it works. And even when, if you're in an abusive situation, which she was not, but if you are, obviously you need to physically remove yourself and go somewhere safer. But going to an island without any money is just plain old stupid. And she was at this point where she just wasn't using her noggin. And she could have gotten in a lot of trouble. I mean, she did, but she could have gotten in a lot more or just disappeared. And so
Exactly.
this story has an important message about standing up and fighting where you are instead of leaving town and fighting invisible dragons with no assistance. That's not really a good choice.
It's true, but it was a really good story, and I think that the readers will get that message.
I hope so.
It was, and it was just, it flows so nicely. It really just kept me intrigued. I couldn't put it down until I finished it. So I loved it. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I also really enjoyed Carolina Spirit, which was a completely different spin.
Oh yeah.
It kept a lot of your same writing style where you bring the reader into the quest, so to say, and I just don't know how you did that. So tell us a little bit about Carolina Spirit and where you got the ideas for this.
Well, Carolina Spirit was actually what inspired me to finally write. I've wanted to write my whole life, and I've written and filled up books and written poetry, but I've never actually like initiated it into paragraphs and formatted it and really put the time in. And I don't think I was ready until now. I'm finally ready. But Carolina Spirit was actually inspired by a real paranormal kind of occurrence. My family and I go to this incredible place called Hunting Island in South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it so amazing is nobody lives there. It's owned by the government and it's protected. And there are these huge trees that fall in the water and you can climb on them and the water's rushing under. I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing. So we were on our way and it takes about an hour and 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time we get out there, we're all half asleep and grumpy and not even sure if we really should have gone. And, so you're just driving in the car, not paying attention. And we got to the big marsh right before we get to this island because you can get to it by car. And I heard a voice that said, "Come see." And I was like, "What? How much coffee did I drink this morning? I can't remember." And then I heard it again. "Come on. What are you waiting for?" And I was just like, okay, she's finally lost it. I'm not on drugs of any kind, just to say that. And I looked in my mind's eye. It was more like my mind's eye. I wasn't seeing anymore. I saw feet, bare feet, running next to our car. And I mean, I could see the mud flicking off the feet, the bare feet. And it was a young girl. It was this girl, Gracie. And she said to me, "Do you want to know?" And I was like, what? Oh my God, And so in my head, I said yes. And I followed her. But we were going 55 miles an hour. So there's no possible way a human being could be running 55 miles an hour. So she took me to Indigo Road, this place that I speak of in the book, and told me about what she saw and what she experienced. The entire first chapter is what Gracie told me.
Wow.
The entire first chapter. I mean, I went to the beach and my family was making fun of me. You're having this weird moment, and so I just finally shut up about it because, I was embarrassed. But 3 days later, she came back to me and said, "Are you going to do it?" And I was like, what? Oh, God. Now I have this voice following me to my house with the bare feet. And I came to a conclusion that Gracie was maybe a residual memory of someone who used to live on this creek and used to live on this marsh. And for some reason, she wanted me, she chose me to write this story. And so I did. I mean, I felt like I had to. I have no idea if it did anything for her, but I felt almost like I was beholden to her to do it.
Wow, that's great. Because as far as paranormal stories go, this was really well done. It was believable and it drew you into the story and what happened and what she was trying to chase down and expose. So it sounds like you may have twisted the end of the book.
The end is it had nothing to do with what she told me, but I do know that she lost her father. So I had to get creative license and sort of, because she didn't come back. So if she kept talking to me, I would have kept, you know, just scribbling it down at 3 o'clock in the morning in my pajamas going, okay, what? Because she was talking to me just like two friends just standing next to a tree. I mean, it was just like so simple. And it wasn't scary. It was more like that felt more real than reality itself. It was that easy. Like
Right.
she was just, she glided in. But the most interesting aspect of the story, though, and something that really, really struck it home for me, when I finished writing the story, I went out to this place again to take pictures. Because I felt like, okay, I have to inspire my cover. I have to figure out what I'm going to do. And I met this woman who works at the world's oldest African American school. It was started after slavery was abolished. So it's the oldest African American school in North America. And she was working in the old gymnasium. And I asked her if I could take some pictures and I told her what I had experienced. And she goes, oh, that's nothing. My daughter sees a Native American walking around the same marsh on the water in full headdress all the time. And I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy because other people are experiencing things out in this place. So there's a magic on this marsh. It's enormous and really, really wild. And so, there's it's almost like a breath of history just floats through it. And you have to pay attention. If you're driving in your car and you're falling asleep with your frozen Coke, you're never going to notice. But for a moment, if you're in that right frame of mind, it just sort of like jumps you and you're like, there you are. And you can see it and you can feel it. And it's everywhere out there. It's a crazy place. I love it. But it also is not the kind of place I would want to be after dark.
Oh, that's encouraging.
I don't think I could do that because it really almost feels like it hums. It hums. Because you have like the life and the birds and the fish and the fishermen, and then you have this like ancient hum underneath. It's just a stunning place. It's really special.
Wow. And can anybody go visit there, or do you have to?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. That school is it has tours. It has, oh, I wish I could remember the name of it because I drive by it, so it's like I don't have to know the name. But it's on St. Helena Island, and if you looked it up online, you would find it if you just typed in oldest African American school. But it's like a huge deal to the people out there. It's really, really important to the history of the island, and they're very proud that they've kept this place going. They still have seminars. They still teach things. They do literacy programs. I mean, it's just amazing that this place is still operating. But it's old bricks and big giant oaks, and I mean, it's just fabulous.
Wow, it sounds like it. And it reminds me a lot of the book now that you're explaining where you were, that gave you the inspiration to write it, because you described it so well in the book. You could actually, smell the salt air, and it just really drew you in. And this character, Gracie, she also followed her intuition.
Yeah,
Which
and
is a really good message for young girls, I think.
Thank
For
you.
any age. We all need to follow our intuition more. But she made some good choices, a couple of scary ones.
Yeah, that's true. That's why in all of my books I always say, please don't try this at home. That little blurb in the front of it, because in a book you can do anything you want, but in real life there will be consequences if you take off in the middle of the night and do crazy things with equipment you don't understand, or or you show up on Caribbean islands with no money. You know,
True.
you can't do that.
Well, Gracie was lucky she had Gus because he did tell somebody. But she should have thought of it, maybe.
I think Gracie got to the point where she needed to know the answer so intensely that she was willing to risk everything. And Gus was always like her guardian angel. And it was really important for me to take an African American teenage boy
Hmm.
and to take him out of the thug and to put him into the good-hearted person. Because there are less than 15 books in print anywhere on the planet with that going on. That is ridiculous.
Yeah. But it was a great story, especially set in South Carolina. Where can people find your books?
Well, the right now primarily my outlet is Amazon,
Okay.
and that's what I'm using for the most part. Amazon is the easiest place I've found to self-publish.
Okay.
Some of them are on Tower Books. They're on Tower Books as well, and I do have them on Barnes and Noble. But Barnes and Noble, honestly, the format that they give independent authors, which is what I am, um, it takes like 2 days to put an update in. I keep editing because I'm never happy with it. I always think, oh, I have to move that comma or that paragraph should be shorter. You know, I'm like a complete maniac when it comes to my writing. And so I can update really fast on Amazon. So that seems to be where it's the freshest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sort of that's the best juice in the refrigerator as far as where to find my books.
Oh, that's a good idea. So, what was your favorite book growing up?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Well, you know, I would have to say of every book, and I've read so many books. I don't even know how many books I've read. I think Alas Babylon was my favorite,
Oh, that
my
was.
absolute favorite. Have you ever read it?
I haven't.
Oh my
Just
gosh.
parts of it.
It's the reason I loved Alas Babylon is because the least likely people on the planet were the ones that made it through. But they made it through because they created their own community. You know, it's an apocalyptic book,
Mm-hmm.
but it also talks about
Is that from the Left Behind series?
no, it's really old, like 1954.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
it's really old. But I found it in our library because I grew up with a library in our house. And when it came out, it was very sensational because people didn't write about the apocalypse or about atomic anything because
Mm-hmm.
it was the 50s. So everybody's scared to death, you know, of that going on. Now, honestly, I think people are almost, you know, they don't even notice the way that they should notice. But Alas Babylon was a sensation because it talks about World War III. It
Mm-hmm.
talks about the bomb going off and exactly what happens and the chaos and the avarice and just absolute anarchy is really, when you think about it, the way it was written, it was really like the author was there. And so I started using it as my zombie apocalypse plan, even before there was such a name for that plan. And, I went through a phase, probably from like 8 to 10, that I loved books like that. They were a way of sort of feeling like, even in a really unstable world, that I was ready. Even though, obviously none of us are ready for that, we'll never be ready for that. But the idea, though, that you have to amass coffee, salt, and chocolate felt comfortable. And I just loved that story. I've read that story probably 40 times.
Wow.
And I still have it after it's been stolen from me even more times.
All right, the last Babylon sounds like a good place. And do you have any last messages for our audience or young girls in general?
For young girls in general, I saw a commercial last night that really bothered me. It said, "We need engineers." And it had a young boy running through a house. Okay, hello. We need engineers that are girls. We need writers that are girls. And the message keeps coming that females, aren't as strong. Okay, well, we know we're not. That we might be as smart, maybe even smarter. So I think girls need to stop holding on to these like 1945 values and realize they can do anything they want as long as they don't choose weightlifter, because maybe you can't do that. But if young women want to change things and want to be writers, they should be writers. I had somebody say, "I want to write a book." I said, "Then sit down and write it." And they said, "Well, it'll be terrible." I said, "Maybe it will. So what? Write it. And then go from there." So the idea that being a writer is some higher form of anything, it's BS, because it's not. Every person has the ability to use their language and to say what they want to say. You might be putting the commas in a place that will upset your English teacher, but that's okay. That's what editors are for. So, my message would be is stop listening to people who don't support you and start listening to what you want to do, because you can. It's I can't even tell you how many people told me I couldn't do this, and I said, "Watch me."
That's
You know,
great. And you did it. And you're doing great. And you have great reviews because the books are really fantastic. Thank you so much for being with us today. And the last thing is part of your the proceeds from the books benefit an organization.
hmm
Which
yeah,
organization?
we were trying to plant tree seedlings, and that became a problem because people wanted me to collect the seedlings, and I had no place to store them. So we decided to give 20% of all of our paperback sales to the Nature Conservancy. As of January 1st, the first thing I will do is write a check to the Nature Conservancy. I'm going to go through all of my sales and make sure that we give them what we promised. And then I'm going to go jump in the ocean with my family, because that's what we always do on that island I was talking to you about.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you again for joining us today and sharing so much about how you write and why. We really appreciate it. And best wishes with your future success.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Until next time, keep asking questions. The answers are out there.